Hi folks, it is your favorite diplomacy superhero, Florida Man, once again. Today, I bring you an after-action report on a game I played on PlayDiplomacy.com. The game was named wwI, and it was different from the usual games I play, in that this game was set up so that no draws were allowed. In other words, the game could not end in a draw, only a solo, and it would go on until that happened. We shall see how that affected the dynamics of this game. I was assigned Italy. It's not one of my favorite powers, but I will admit it, it's been growing on me lately. I reached out to every other player and engaged in my usual diplomacy, taken to a greater level, I think, because in my mind, Italy is the power that most needs to make things happen and shake up the board by trying adventurous and exciting moves and alliances. Unfortunately, I didn't get any real traction in my early messages, except that I set up a central triple thread. Germany stated that he and France were planning to go after England, so although I wanted to go after France early on, I knew I would not have support for it, and I made my most typical boring opening moves as Italy, preparing to convoy to Tunisia. Unfortunately, France messaged Germany and me, forwarding me a message Austria sent him, with Austria's very characteristic poor grammar and spelling, which authenticated it for me as probably legit. The message was Austria trying to expose to France that Germany and I were going after Marseille. There were several things about this that I found remarkable. Austria was one of the people pushing for this idea, that Germany and I should go for Marseille, in the group chat, and this plot did not actually exist because I abandoned the idea as soon as it was clear Germany wanted to work against England. So, Austria was basically just trying to create trouble between me and Italy based on pure lies. And I think it was quite stupid. Because of this idiocy, Germany and I resolved to get rid of Austria first. My fall moves included both a convoy to Tunisia and a move to Trieste, which failed because Austria held in place there. Austria actually held most of his units in place, because I think he just wanted to let Turkey take Greece. He must have thought that he and Turkey were allied. We'll see whether that was correct later on. Germany moved into Tyrolia to assist in my attack on Austria, so that was good. In the build phase, I see both Germany and France build fleets in the north as well as an army to the south each, which felt pretty good to me since they were unsuited to immediately attack me with that distribution of forces. That allowed me to solidify my plan to advance on Austria, which is something I'm usually wary of doing as Italy. In spring 1909, Germany supports me into Trieste, while unfortunately France stabs Germany. If only Germany had been interested in going after France early, I'm pretty sure this would not have happened. Happily, rather than coming to Austria's aid, Turkey moves aggressively to get a piece of Russia, so maybe he and Austria were actually allied, as Austria seems to have believed, but Turkey wasn't really interested in protecting the Austrian. In fall, Germany and I continue our invasion of Austria, with me supporting him into Vienna and convoying into Albania. I feel as if the game's off to a pretty good start for me, especially since Vienna is basically in my hands now, and I feel as if England will inevitably stab France once Germany begins to weaken in the center, which will give me an opening later. Maybe this can be my path to solo. With the build phase, France and I maintain our agreements by both building armies. I am beginning to become quite the noteworthy land power, and I can't say I dislike this at all. Spring 1903, I support Germany advancing into Budapest, which is great for our alliance. Germany seems to be appreciative that he has a zone in which he can continue growing, and I'm aware that he can't defend any of the centers he's taking, and eventually they will be mine. The unfortunate thing for him is he's still losing ground to England and France, but Russia supports him into Sweden in this season, allowing him to fight back a bit. Unfortunately for Germany, the fall brings the rise of an apparent juggernaut. Turkey enters the sea spaces that defend his homeland, Russia moves into Vienna. On the bright side, Germany supported me into Serbia, and he retained all of his home centers as well as Budapest, while my bounce with France and Piedmont promoted mutual security without using units that would otherwise have been able to capture centers. In spring 1904, with my new fleet, I shift into full battle mode against Turkey, preparing the usual convoy chain that would help me break through his tough defenses. However, he moves Khan to Smyrna to counter my plan. Also, France is advancing through Germany's home centers now, while keeping a fleet floating in the mid-Atlantic Ocean ominously for future use. In fall, it's one step forward and two steps back for the alliance. As Germany loses Munich, England keeps Sweden, which he had taken from Germany in spring, and I lose Serbia while gaining Greece. Also, Turkey destroys my other fleet by supporting himself into Eastern Med and cutting off its path of retreat to Syria. The only bright side is that Russia appears to be moving to attack Turkey as well as me and Germany, so what appeared to be a juggernaut does not look likely to last. In the builds this time, I get a fleet and an army replacing the units I lost with the same kinds. France builds fleets in both Brest and Marseille, setting off alarm bells for me. On the bright side, England built a fleet in Liverpool, which seems very anti-French. And at this point, I don't feel England has anywhere to go except through France. At my request, Germany keeps his southern armies, destroying the northern units, so that he can help me fend off the Russians and Turks. With the spring, France whispers reassuring words, and claims he's going for England, not me. I move into the Tyrrhenian Sea just in case, but it ends up that France was telling the truth, and moving his fleets away from me to the extent that was possible. England defends against that as well as he could. In the east, Russia easily slips into Turkey's unguarded center of Ankara, and Germany and I continue fighting Turkey as well. In fall 1905, Germany and I do well in the southwest, and although Turkey gains position against me, together Germany, Russia, and I have reduced him to 2 home centers. In the build phase, it becomes clear Turkey has decided to try and do some damage to me at the cost of destroying himself. With spring 1906, I persuaded France to come east and used a couple of his armies to help us with Russia, but this was also the moment when I thought Germany and I were making peace with Russia and going north to retake the German homeland from France. In fall, however, Russia was supposed to move Constantinople into Ankara and allow me to take Khan, making it sort of a 50-50 split of the Turkish centers, but he betrayed that agreement. I only forgive the betrayal for a moment because I believed I needed him to help me defeat France. In the next year, it initially appears that Russia, Germany, and I are all on sort of the same anti-French page. But as I look at the map, and I keep in mind Russia's lack of teamwork thus far, I remain suspicious of Russia's intentions. And in fall 1907, Russia and I simultaneously move into position to attack each other. It probably goes without saying, but at this point, Germany remains loyal to me. Spring 1908 finds me at war on 2 fronts, advancing against both Russia and France, with my German comrade wreaking havoc behind the French lines. However, after taking Spain and failing to take the mid-Atlantic Ocean, it becomes clear to me that I cannot win both fights, and trying to prosecute both wars at once will end with me being crushed and losing all that I've gained. Therefore, I offer France a peace agreement by which he'll recover both Spain and Marseille, and after that we can work together to finish Russia off. France doesn't trust me at first, but after I willingly vacate both centers, since I knew I couldn't hold them anyway, France ends up being willing to work together. France also teams up with England, and the 3 of us spend a few years destroying Russia. It's a gradual process, but we slowly break Russia's defenses down until the Russian is in Sevastopol only, and England has grown quite large. It's at this point that the race for Solo kind of slows down to a crawl. Normally at this point we would be approaching a draw, but it's a solo-only game. There's a lot of shuffling units around, attempting to gain ground, but England and France really can't attack me effectively with what they have, so they end up going after each other. That results in me gaining ground at their expense, which eventually leads to the Italian solo. I hope you've enjoyed this after-action report. I must admit, this probably would not have been an Italian victory if not for the solos only rule, because there was no reason for England and France to fight other than that near the end. Still, I found it was overall a good back-and-forth game, and a win is a win. Ideally, all diplomacy games would be solo only, in the sense that we should all always be striving for that result. But of course, if that was actually encoded in the rules, that would drastically alter the way people played, and I think perhaps not for the better. Comment below. Let me know what you think of the solo-only concept. If you liked this video, please like. If you're one of those viewers who still hasn't subscribed, please get on that. Until next time, Florida Man, out.